Welcome to the Tristan Law Show. If it's your first time here, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I am Tristan Law. Today we are diving into some of the most disturbing and shocking moments in WWE Raw history that you've probably forgotten or you've tried to forget. These moments will make you wonder, did they really happen on TV? I want you to stick around for your comments from threads and in the live chat. In the live chat, I asked, what are some disturbing WWE moments that you have forgotten? So be sure, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this later on, drop that in the chat. Let me know, and we'll discuss them throughout the show. One of the first moments that I wanted to get into that was shocking and it's going to make you wonder, did it happen on TV? It was Eugene getting his head shaved. You see, this took place on March 19th, 2007. Eugene is or was a character portrayed, he was portrayed to have special needs. He was portrayed to have autism, to be on the spectrum, and he was humiliated in the ring and beaten in the ring by Umaga and his head shaved. Here's the backstory. So this was the March 19th, 2007 Monday Night Raw leading up to WrestleMania 23 and the Battle of the Billionaires match between Umaga with Vince McMahon in his corner and Donald Trump with his wrestler being Bobby Lashley, and Stone Cold Steve Austin was the referee. The implications of the match was that the winning the wrestler that won, their billionaire that's in their corner, would have to get their head shaved. It was either Mr. McMahon or Donald Trump. After kicking Bobby Lashley out of the arena, Mr. McMahon bumps into Eugene. Eugene bumps into Mr. McMahon and spills a drink on Mr. McMahon. The reason why I'm using Mr. McMahon instead of Vince McMahon is because Mr. McMahon is the character that he was playing on the television. Vince McMahon is somebody totally separate, but once we go through this whole episode, you might see how Vince McMahon and Mr. McMahon, they may not be too different of a people. At this time, Eugene bumps into Mr. McMahon, and he spills his drink on Mr. McMahon. Mr. McMahon is visibly annoyed and tells Eugene that he made a boo-boo. And you know what? Accidents happen. But he does also hope that an accident doesn't happen tonight on Monday Night Raw. Eugene leaves, and then Mr. McMahon summons Jonathan Coachman to get Umaga. For what? We don't know while you're watching, but we will find out. So it culminates into a match on Monday Night Raw, a really short match between Umaga and Eugene, and Umaga is a winner. McMahon orders Umaga to strap Eugene into the barber's chair. McMahon pretends Eugene is now Donald Trump, and he orders Umaga to choke Eugene out while he cuts Eugene's long hair. Umaga knocks Eugene out of the chair and threatens to shave everybody's hair in the arena, all while Eugene is crying and drooling on the ground. Okay. So Eugene's character was controversial at the time because, it was somebody with special needs. Eugene was introduced as the nephew, that they even said special nephew of Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff was the general manager of Raw when Eugene got introduced. Compared to now, where people understand autism a lot more, we realize that there are probably a lot more people on the autism spectrum than we thought. Maybe it wasn't funny. At the time it was horrible for it to happen to Eugene. It makes you wonder, was this moment even necessary for entertainment at the time? At the time, yes, it told the story. It told the story. It wasn't right that they beat up somebody that was special needs, no. But that's how they got the reactions out of the fan. Everybody hated Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon was the heel. Mr. McMahon held down a special needs person and got them to get their haircut on national TV. Okay, not funny, not right, but eventually what happened was that Vince McMahon did lose. Mr. McMahon did lose that match. Bobby Lashley beat Umaga, and they shaved Vince McMahon's head on national television. Okay, but we're just getting started with these disturbing WWE moments, and there's a lot more to come. If you're enjoying the ride so far, make sure to subscribe so that you never miss new content. You don't want to miss what I've got coming up next. So the next moment that might be a little bit too disturbing that I totally even forgot that it happened on Monday Night Raw. This one was Viscera arrives for a date with a roll of condoms, and Trish Stratus suggests that Viscera should assault Christy Hemme. Here's the story. So Trish Stratus was having beef with Lita, but Lita's husband, Kane, became involved in the beef. Kane was stalking Trish on the April 18th episode of Raw, and Trish Stratus needed help. So Viscera came out to make the save on Trish. And Viscera demolished Kane in the ring, and then he then scooped up a smiling and conniving Trish Stratus and scoops her away from the arena and takes her backstage. However, backstage, we get let into a conversation where Viscera reminds Trish of their deal, where he does something for her and she does something for him. Real quid pro quo-y things going on here. We see that Trish Stratus made a deal and she is way in over her head, but got bamboozled into a date with Viscera and sealed the deal, and Viscera sealed the deal with a forced kiss. Now on to the date. This will last over a couple segment on the April 25th, 2005 episode of Raw. Trish is in the restaurant and she is waiting for Viscera to arrive. Trish thinks that she got away with murder because Viscera's late and she's getting ready to peel out. But the second she gets ready to peel out, who's behind her? None other than Big Viscera. Viscera lets her know that he was late because he went to the drugstore and for condoms, and he pulls out a strip of about 15 condoms out of his suit pocket. We get some wrestling action now, and then we're back with Trish and Viscera. They're now sitting at the dinner table. I told you this goes a couple segments on that April 25th episode of Monday Night Raw. So Trish comments on how great Viscera did destroying Kane the previous week on Raw, and how he followed her instructions just the way that she wanted. It's time for them to order. She then orders bangers and mash in an English accent. I think is a pretty good English accent for an American woman. And they're in England. Viscera laughs because Trish Stratus orders bangers and mash, and Viscera laughs and explains to Trish he's laughing because he's a banger and likes to mash. All right, it was funny. They got a little chuckle out of me there when I watched that. He then tells Trish that he's glad that she agreed to the date because eating gets him in the mood. The mood. Trish tells Viscera that he must be a real horny guy, and Viscera is well over 500 pounds. Viscera then says to the waiter, showing him the menu, you see this page right here, dog? That's me right here. I'll take it. Meaning the whole entire page on the menu. He hands the waiter back the menu and then eats a roll from the table, one of the bread, and he's laughing while Trish Stratus is visually uncomfortable. So now we get a little bit more wrestling, we get more promos, and now we're back to the dinner table. There are more plates on that table than Jesus had disciples. Trish asks Viscera what his name means, and Viscera says that his name means inner organs. But his outer organs ain't so bad either. Look, at this point, I think this whole thing is out of control. It's funny. They're making a little bit of content. They're making a little bit of funny stuff here. But then this is where it takes a turn for the worse. Trish Stratus then offers Viscera Christy Hemme. Trish Stratus says, maybe that she can knock out Christy Hemme, and then Viscera could do what he wants to her. Viscera is about to answer, but then music starts playing. Viscera tries to get Trish to dance. Trish declines, and Viscera then shows Trish Stratus' moves. But then he is knocking plates out of the waiter's hands, and then it's awkward for a second, and Viscera goes, check please. We got a little bit more wrestling and promos, and Viscera and Trish Stratus are seen back at the table. Viscera is drinking wine, and Trish Stratus, I hope that she was drinking water, not vodka. Viscera said, well, since dinner's over, you know what that means, and then pulls a big bottle of Listerine out of the suit pocket. Remember, he's a big dude, so that pocket's got to be really deep. He pulled condoms out of there. He pulled a big old bottle of Listerine, not the small little travel size bottle. He pulled a big bottle out of his jacket. God knows what else he had in there. So Viscera then takes a swig of the Listerine, does a little gargle, swallows it, and then tries to seal the deal with Trish. Trish works her way out. She slaps some sense into Viscera and reminds him that she has huge problems, that she can handle Lita, but she can't handle Kane, and she needs Kane destroyed this Sunday at Backlash. Okay. But after Backlash, Trish tells Viscera that after Backlash, they can do whatever he wants to do. But until then, they're not doing the deed. They're not doing it now. Viscera vows that when he is finished with Kane, Kane will never, ever bother Trish Stratus again, and agrees that, you know what, it's okay for him to be paid afterwards. He doesn't have to be paid tonight. However, since Viscera did take her out to dinner, he would like an advance. Trish stands up, and in a panic, she flashes her breasts to Viscera, where he moans and is put into some sort of trance. Okay. So, my thing now, when you're really looking at it, right? If Trish Stratus didn't really want to go on that date, why did she travel halfway across the world to another episode of Monday Night Raw, got dressed, and showed up to the dinner, knowing that Viscera was probably going to show up? She had a whole entire week. It's not like he held her hostage. He had a whole entire week that he could have escaped and didn't have to go through the date. The forced kiss, maybe a little bit too much. Okay, it is too much for when you're forcing yourself on people that people don't want to be forced on. But when you really look at it in the terms of TV land, right? Because I always say that pro wrestling is one of those things that takes place we always assume that it takes place in reality. It's not really like TV. It's not really like a soap opera, even though it was. That's something that you would see on a soap opera. Trish Stratus, the heel, she had a conniving plan, and she got way in over her head, and now this was the receipt, right? You had a sexually motivated guy like Viscera who wanted to get a date with a girl like Trish, could probably never get a woman like Trish. He's on a date with her, he kisses her forcibly, and he brings the condom because he wants the protection, he expects sex. Is it right in the real realm of things? No, it's not right. But you know what? At the time, I think it was comedic. But I don't think that, Trish Stratus offering up Christy Hemme and saying, hey, whatever you want to do, you can do it with her. Just let me knock her out for you. Maybe that was a little bit of crossing the line. I don't think that sexual violence is appropriate. I don't think that it is funny. But today, if you're looking at this storyline today, oh my God, everybody would be up in arms. Everybody would be upset. They'd be ready to shut down the WWE. They'd be ready to put the WWE out of business all because of this. And would it be warranted? I don't know. Because pro wrestling takes place in the reality, right? However, when we're watching it on TV, is pro wrestling a TV show? Is it a sporting event? I don't know. That's that gray area that pro wrestling lies in. It's not quite WWE, it's not quite NBA, but it's not quite the Young and the Restless. But it's kind of like both, and they meet in the middle. Taking a look at another segment that you probably forgot from Monday Night Raw, and it was probably really disturbing. This is during a match, Patterson and Gerald Brisco throw powder into the ninth wonder of the world, Chyna's face. They grope her and spank her. All right, here's the story. So Mr. McMahon has been getting humiliated by Chyna for weeks. A challenge for a handicap match was made on Sunday Night Heat the night prior. Gerald Brisco and Pat Patterson in a 2-on-1 handicap match on Raw. They manhandle her. They abuse Chyna in the ring. They beat Chyna in the ring. But Chyna happens to hold her own. Gerald Brisco then throws powder in the eyes of Chyna. Chyna takes a swipe and misses, but she can't see. Brisco then, with powder on his hand, slaps Chyna's butt, leaving a powdered handprint on his butt cheek, and Patterson follows suit. Gerald Brisco then fondles the breast. He jiggles the breasts of Chyna, and then Patterson does the same, and then they're laughing about it like it's funny. Chyna's able to see, eventually able to see, and she hands both men their asses. She tosses them on top of each other and gets a huge victory in this 2-on-1 handicap match. Okay. It's not appropriate, guys or people, to touch people when they don't want to be touched. But this is TV, it's wrestling, we're talking about that gray area. The treatment doing the women of the Attitude Era was out of this world. It was not appropriate. However, Chyna was a little bit different. She was a sex symbol, but she can kick ass at the same exact time. And she was getting ready. She was only, a couple of days away from being the first woman ever to enter the Royal Rumble. So I guess it was okay to put her in the match, but I don't think it was kind of okay for them to jiggle her breast on television. If you go back and you watch all of these on Peacock, this was the January 18th, 1999 edition of Monday Night Raw. They block out when they jiggle her breasts because it's inappropriate. You do see it when they do spank her and stuff like that. But, you know, what we know now, we know that Patterson was LGBTQ. He was gay. And, you know, it was something that he probably, I don't know, I can't speak for him, but from my assumption, it might have been something that he didn't really enjoy doing, right? But in the end, the good guy, the baby face always wins, and Chyna won. And she definitely handed them their asses after they violated her. Chyna has been a legend. She's a legend in pro wrestling. She has broken barriers despite the sexist treatment. And today, this would not be allowed with someone like Rhea Ripley, who's in the ring with men, right? This would not be allowed with somebody like Nia Jax, who's in the ring. But Chyna definitely broke the mold. She broke the barriers, and she definitely went above and beyond the sexist treatment of the woman during the Attitude Era. The next one that we're going to look at that is a disturbing moment on WWE Raw that you probably forgot was Eric Bischoff breaking into Vince and Linda McMahon's mansion. He corners Linda and forcibly kisses her while making lewd remarks. Here's the story. So the month prior, Kane tombstones Linda McMahon on her head doing an episode of Raw. Now we're up to the August 18th episode of Raw, and we're all watching the show, waiting for Eric Bischoff to show up to the arena. In the meantime, the wrestling's happening, we're all waiting, the promos are happening, they're telling the stories, and then we get a video of Linda McMahon at home in Greenwich, Connecticut. And she's going to give us an update on the status of her injury at the hands of Kane a month prior. Linda updates on her status, and suddenly the door begins to ring. And it's like somebody's leaning on the doorbell. All you hear is ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. That's where me, as who I am, would want to open the door and go, what the F? Like, what is it that you want? So Linda, being a lot more professional and nicer than I am, when people knock on her door, ring her doorbell like they don't got no sense, Linda says, excuse her for a second. She's going to go see who it is, because obviously the way that they ring the damn doorbell, they need to be talked to. Linda stands up, and 2 seconds later, Eric Bischoff is standing in her house. Eric tells Linda that she looks shocked to see him, but not as shocked as Shane McMahon must be, because they had an upcoming match. Eric comments on how Linda is home alone and comments on how good she looks. But let's jump out real quick and remind you that Linda McMahon could not be home alone because there was somebody holding the camera. There was obviously somebody holding a boom mic over their heads, but we don't see it, so we're not going to believe it, and we're going to say that she was home alone. Oh yeah, Vince McMahon produced it. He was right there in the background. They take us to commercial, and when we come back, Eric comments that he is not there to hurt Linda like Kane, but he's there to please her. Linda tells him to leave or she's calling security. So Linda then runs for the phone, but Eric stops her. Eric airs a grievance over how Shane took WCW away from him and how WCW was his company. All right, maybe he had a point. It's been a little over 2 years since WCW closed at the time, and the wounds were still a little bit fresh for Eric. Linda tries to slap Eric, but Eric restrains her and places her arm behind her back, and he tells her not to fight it, that she'll enjoy it a lot more that way. He then comments on the size of her breasts and tells her to show him to the bedroom, and then he kisses her. There's a commercial break, and you see Shane McMahon running out of the arena to save his mother all the way from Detroit. He even assaults a guy and steals the guy's car. Okay, so there's there's a lot of invasion of personal space between Linda McMahon and Eric Bischoff. How is it that Eric Bischoff was able to ring the bell and appear at the door and appear in front of Linda so quickly, unless their office is literally standing right in front of the door? Maybe Eric Bischoff had an accomplice that was with him, but I tell you this, the personal space was a little bit too much, and he could have injured Linda a little bit more because the way her arms were behind the back and the way he held on to her, he might have crossed a little bit of ethical lines there. This would be considered today as very controversial. This would definitely make the news. It's over the top because a man breaks into another man's house, finds the man's mother, and forcefully kisses the man's mother, makes lewd comments to her, and tells her to show him the bedroom. We never really see if she gets to see the bedroom, but I'll tell you this. Out of the 4 people in the McMahon family, Mr. McMahon being one, Linda being another, Shane being a third, and Stephanie being the fourth, Eric Bischoff has kissed 2 out of the 4. He's kissed not only Linda, but he's also kissed Stephanie. I wonder if Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon feel slighted that maybe they didn't get to kiss Eric Bischoff. I don't know. But looking at some of the other moments in Raw that might have been a little bit too shocking, disturbing that you might have forgotten was during the March 18th, 1996 episode of Raw, during Diesel's match, Paul Bearer rolls out a casket to the ring, and Diesel opens it up to only see his own dead body. Here's the story. Diesel's in the ring. He's getting ready to start his match against Barry Horowitz, but the WWE, in true fashion, they remind us that last week, Diesel assaulted Paul Bearer, who was then the manager of The Undertaker. For some strange reason, Diesel has had a change of attitude recently. During Diesel's match, Paul Bearer rolls out a casket, and what we are led to believe is that it might even be The Undertaker in that casket. In true Barry Horowitz fashion, he loses the match. Diesel then goes out to the ring, and instead of leaving, he decides to open the casket. And when he opens the casket, there's no Undertaker in there. Nope, but it was him in the casket. How could this be? Diesel looks very disturbed and walks away because he's possibly seeing not only himself dead in the casket, but he sees the aftermath of his match at WrestleMania against The Undertaker, which is happening later on this month. During that episode of Raw, I feel that there was a lot of turn the corner moments there. They even had a camera in the locker room. It was the $1 Million Man in the locker room. 1, 2, 3 kid was there, who was Sean Waltman, X-Pac. And it's like, $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase's like, what's the camera doing back here? So this was the time when WWE was doing different things. They were using psychological horror elements. And this is something that we even see now with the Wyatt Six on Monday Night Raw. More than 20 years, maybe 30 years later, that we're seeing this now. Surreal moments like this one, it straddled the line between entertainment and unsettling imagery. We didn't really get to see fully into the casket, but it looks like there was some kind of either wax or silicone or something that was some kind of dummy that looked very similar to Diesel. I wonder if the WWE still has that in their archive. I don't know. That's something that I should ask on the WWE Vault YouTube channel. Did he still have that? But if you think things are getting pretty intense, right? If you're into this kind of deep dive into wrestling's forgotten moments, take a second to subscribe to my channel, The Tristan Law Show. I got more episodes coming your way, and your support helps me bring more content to you. let's take a look at another moment that's a little bit too shocking that you probably forgot from Monday Night Raw. This was Dennis Knight. He is sacrificed by The Undertaker, made to drink The Undertaker's blood, and then Brandon with The Undertaker symbol, transforming him into Midian. A few weeks prior, the Acolytes, Farouk and Bradshaw, they kidnapped Dennis Knight and had him in a dungeon. They've had him in a dungeon for weeks, and they're torturing the guy. So now we're at the January 11th, 1999 episode of Monday Night Raw, and we see Dennis Knight laying on a platform on the stage in the arena, flanked by Farouk and Bradshaw, the Acolytes, and the Druids. They're singing, there's chanting, they're singing in tongues, and then the Undertaker's music starts. Undertaker makes his way to a throne. He talks some mess about something that was too spooky for me to even want to talk about as a 13-year-old. The Undertaker walks over to Dennis Knight, speaks in tongues, extracts blood from himself, squeezes it into a chalice, all while Paul Bearer is laughing and the crowd is chanting for Stone Cold Steve Austin. Undertaker decrees that Dennis Knight is no longer Dennis Knight, but he is now Midian. He feeds Midian the blood, and Midian begins to convulse. Undertaker follows up by drawing his symbol on the chest of Dennis Knight using a knife, who is now Midian. We get a bolt of lightning, and Undertaker's symbol, it sets the stage on fire. Now Midian is floating, and they take us to commercial. Look, at that time, when WWE was doing all that spooky stuff with the Ministry of Darkness, it was too spooky for me. I thought The Undertaker was getting ready to take over the world, and the world was over as we knew it. But I'll tell you this. The Ministry of Darkness Undertaker was probably my most favorite Undertaker. Maybe it's because it scared me for a little bit. And I've said, and Undertaker himself, Mark Calloway, has said himself that Ministry of Darkness Undertaker was not his favorite Undertaker. But the cult-like nature of the storyline, let me tell you, that pushed the boundaries. That pushed the boundaries between reality and what was not real. Maybe for me more so because I was 13, I was underage. Maybe it was something that I shouldn't have been watching at the time. Maybe if my mother had really made sure I went to bed, I would have never watched those kind of things. But you know what? I'm so glad that I missed it. That I watched it. WWE leaned so heavily into those kind of themes at the time and those real life themes at the time and moments that we see it as disturbing at the time because they were in competition with WCW. This was something that WCW was not doing. WWE Raw at the time felt really soap opera-ish, and even though it felt really soap opera-ish, they weren't too far long removed from where every wrestler had a job, meaning that there was a plumber, there was a dentist, there was a pig farmer, so on and so forth. So, they were kind of moving towards what we know as pro wrestling today. And I think, you know what? For the time, it was great. It was great. It was scary. Eventually, we got Naked Midian. Let's take a look at one of the last reasons of why of some of WWE's most shocking and disturbing moments on Monday Night Raw. Terri Runnels fakes a pregnancy and then claims to have a miscarriage. And we're also going to look at Lita, who has a legitimate miscarriage in the storyline with Kane. So there's a match on Monday Night Raw between Edge and D'Lo. This takes place January 4th, 1999. Terri Runnels, who says that she is pregnant, climbs onto the apron of the ring and slips off the stairs. Terri Runnels, who claims that she's pregnant, is then clutching her stomach, and then the referees, D'Lo Brown, who was in the ring, Jacqueline, and the EMTs all run to her side. We then go to a commercial, and then Terri's seen backstage on a stretcher with the WWE doctor attending to her, telling her that they couldn't hear a heartbeat. Okay, look, as a person that has a kid, I am not taking any medical advice from just a regular degular doctor, from a sports doctor. You take my girl to the OB-GYN, and so that we can figure out the OBGYN, the OB-GYN, so that we can figure out whether she's really pregnant or not. I never forget the time when my son's mother and I went to the doctor's office because, there was some kind of, thing going on, and we were not sure if he was still here, and they had to listen for the heartbeat. I'll tell you this. I've never held my breath so long in my entire life just waiting for a heartbeat, and then when I heard a heartbeat, I felt all the stress come off of me. So I don't think that, them listening to the sports doctor telling them whether she's pregnant or not is sufficient for me. I think they should have still went to a medical doctor. I think that Edge is a douche because he didn't go check on Terri to make sure that whether she was hurt or not. There were EMTs just standing around. Look, if the woman is believed to having a miscarriage, why is the WWE doctor looking at her? Get her out of the arena, get her to the hospital so that a more qualified doctor other than a sports doctor can tell you whether you're pregnant or not. A few weeks later, we realized that Terri was making up the whole damn thing. So maybe the doctor was in on it the whole time. You don't know. But you think that's the last time WWE had a miscarriage on television? Nah. On the September 13th, 2004 edition of Raw, Kane was having a match with Gene Snitsky, and Lita slid into the ring to prevent her husband Kane from maiming Snitsky. Snitsky hits an unsuspecting Kane with a chair, and then he falls on Lita, who is then wheeled out on a stretcher. She's clutching her stomach. We're thinking, oh my God, maybe she's going to lose the baby. And next week on Raw, they talk to Snitsky. Snitsky says that he doesn't want to take the blame for it. So now Kane threatened on the next episode of Raw that he's going to remove Snitsky from life. You got to be careful what you say on YouTube. We then eventually get a report that Lita lost the baby. And this one isn't made up, but we now see a berserk Kane. Looking at the two storylines, look, as a person with a kid, I don't think miscarriage is funny. There are people out here who just can't have kids, and I'm glad that the WWE redeemed themselves from the Terri Runnels, where she faked having a pregnancy, up to one to where it was a real pregnancy and real in storyline, of course, television, and that they were able to show how people handle those emotions. I think that Kane and Trish and Kane and Lita probably could have got some therapy after that, but definitely Terri Runnels doing what she did. She needs to go to jail. Jail is where she needs to go because it's not funny to be, pretending that you're having a miscarriage. It's not funny for you to be pretending that you're pregnant either, right? Because pregnancy changes people's lives. Whether you believe it or not, having a child changes people's lives. And I don't think any of that is funny at all. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some comments that I asked on Threads. I asked what were some disturbing TV moments, WWE TV moments that you've forgotten, and I've got some awesome responses. And if you're still watching live, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Some of your disturbing WWE TV moments that you have forgotten, but now you remember. Go ahead and tell me that, and I'll read them for you now. And also, if you're watching this on demand later on, you still go ahead and drop it in the chat. I'll come in and I'll comment on it later on, even though it's not live. Here is what we got. We got, let's see, where is it? There we go. We got, we got Harlow Monroe. Harlow Monroe says, Edge and Lita's sex scene live on TV. I was uncomfortable and felt bad for the both of them. Okay, that person is talking about the sex, I think it was called like live sex that was on Monday Night Raw. At the time, look, I'm not looking at this from a performance point of view. I'm looking at this from a television point of view, right? They both were consenting adults on the television that got in there to do that. Now, were they both comfortable with that in the long run? I don't know. I wasn't there, so I can't really speak on it too much. But what I can tell you is that there were two consenting adults there on the television. They got on the in the bed in an arena in front of national TV, covered up themselves, took off their clothes, and they were naked and doing whatever it is that they were doing on there. But I know as a young man, I was sitting there looking to see if I can get a little slip or something. Okay. Taking a look at another comment that we got when I asked what were some disturbing WWE moments that you have forgotten. We got Boss Man dragging around the Big Show's father in a coffin. All right, so that one was a little bit edgy at the time. I remember that one there. It did come to find out that it wasn't really Big Boss Man's father, because his father had passed away, unfortunately, years before. So, the character Big Boss Man might need some, therapy after that, the character. But, yeah, that's definitely a moment that I think was disturbing, too, and I forgot. Another one that was controversial. So many people mentioned this on my threads at The Real Big Trish. when I asked them what was some of the disturbing WWE TV moments that they've forgotten. This one here came in as number 1, Katie Vick. For those of you who don't know what Katie Vick is, and thanks Nola Dipper for your comment. For those of you who don't know who Katie Vick is a person that was deceased, and Kane happened to have, it was like intercourse with Kane and Triple H. It was a whole entire story. And if you ask me, I think it was too hot for TV. It might even be too hot for YouTube. But yep, that was definitely a moment that I forgot. Another one we're going to take a look at now is Vince McMahon, Kane setting Jim Ross on fire. Thank you so much, Chris James Suave, for your comment. Yep, that one was definitely controversial as well, too. It's like, yo, why JR had to get everything? JR had to get stunned. You know, JR had to be set on fire. JR had to be low blowed. They really mistreated JR doing the Attitude Era. All right, we got another one from when I asked what was the most disturbing moments on WWE TV. This person here pulled this one way out of the grave. This one is from Damaged Brain 7, and he says, does anyone remember when Sonny had relations with an adult-sized Elmo on Shotgun Saturday Night? Those were the days. Look, I didn't remember that one. Not at all. I didn't remember it. I needed some kind of visual proof, and he posted the video. I can't post the video here because it's YouTube, but look, it legit happened. Legit happened. There is Sonny there in the bed with an Elmo doll, and then all of a sudden, an Elmo doll in a thong ends up inside the room. I don't know what they were doing in there, but eventually you see Sonny pull off the underwear, and what happens? You use your imagination. But this was Shotgun Saturday Night. Shotgun Saturday Night was a 1-hour show that came on a New York 55. And it wasn't like on cable, but it came on late night, 11 p.m. on Saturdays. And it was something that we watched way back in the Attitude Era. So yeah, definitely, you know, I didn't remember that. But you know what? Shout out to you for remembering that one. You've probably been holding on to that one for a very long time. What were some of the moments that shocked you the most? Tell me in the comments. Did I miss any? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Comment on what you think are the most disturbing moments in WWE history. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications. This Friday, I'll be back dropping my reaction to the Mr. McMahon documentary on Netflix. You don't want to miss it. This is the Tristan Law Show. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could.